to Another White Boy with a Podcast.
Welcome to the first ever episode of Another White Boy with a Podcast. Thank you everyone for joining. So yes, this is the first episode, and as mentioned in the promos before, we will be talking about labels. How society is so obsessed with labeling absolutely everyone. People in themselves are labeling and desperate to be part of something. And I've got on with me today Carlus Reed from LA, so he will be joining me in a second. But firstly, I want to say today's sponsor will be Data Bites, the protein cookies that don't taste like shit. Everyone is entitled to have their own identity. That's fine. But I feel like societies at this point is just so obsessed with labeling themselves, and then you've got subcategories of labels, and everyone is just desperate to have some kind of identity based on a label rather than just being themselves. So Carlus is going to join us now. There we go. Carlus, thank you for joining the first episode of Another White Boy with a Podcast, all the way from LA. It is approximately 4 p.m. LA time. What is that? Is that East? No, West. Pacific. There we go. Yeah, I'm really bad at stuff. And it is 9 a.m. Melbourne time. West. I'm not really good with it. I am in the future. So,
I know, you're in the future.
It's nothing happens. Thank you for joining. So we've had this conversation in the past, you and I, on offline, with regards to labeling and how people see themselves and how people perceive others, and put anyone generally in a category box. It's like society's desperation for having to categorize every single individual and then break it down even further. What are your thoughts on labels?
Well, like you and I talked about before, and obviously with some of the things that I do on a normal day-to-day basis, it bothers me that people have to, kind of like your premise is that people put everybody in a box. They have to make sense of everything. So in order for something to make sense to their brain, instead of trying to more understand or try to ask questions or try to learn more about somebody or be more educated about whatever they're doing, the concepts of how they live their life, they feel so strongly to have to put them somewhere in a certain category for it to make sense in their brain and go, okay, I'm okay. Yeah. I can keep going on with life or however they do it. But no, I hate labels, because there's so many things also that I enjoy, that I do as a straight man who is also married to a woman, that would be considered different or should be put in another box or another category. And I think when you kind of, I want people to be encouraged to try to explore different avenues of their life, parts of their femininity, parts of their masculinity, without feeling like, well, I can't do that because I'm put in this box. Here is where I stay, and everybody else thinks I should stay here. And so I'm kind of missing out on different parts of life. And I think a lot of people then miss out on a lot of just enjoyment of different people, different friends that they have, different life experiences.
I totally agree with you on that, because I've met a few people that over the years that have wanted to experience certain things, but then they're instantly fearful of what society's labels are going to, come across. Yeah. So what people think of them based on, because of this things that are stereotypical, or and it's a shame, because life should be generally about experiences, and obviously seeing what you like, it doesn't necessarily mean one or the other. And we are so hell-bent of like trying something new and being like, straight away categorized as something in particular. Like, for instance, a man who wears pink. Generally, the general consensus over the years was that, it's instantly you're effeminate or you're gay or whatever it is. And it's so disappointing that the fact that it's been drummed into the minds of people at this point that there's a negative connotation based on it, when in fact it's actually quite the opposite. And I understand in particular, like, when it comes to labels, I mean, like, views, habits, sexual orientation, whatever. I mean, it's totally normal. It's part of society's structure in life. There's a hierarchy. There's people obviously want the need to belong to something. But I think my biggest issue at the moment is that there seems to be the whole label concept is more of a identity crisis than anything else. people are feeling more like they don't have their own identity. So then they create a new identity. And then they have a label that they absolutely use to just to be consuming of their identity. That's it. So without getting myself into trouble, but there's a few people out there, obviously, that would just use one particular label, and that's all they have to offer, which is a shame, because it's obviously you want to be able to, you know, feel comfortable. You want to find your tribe, whatever. I understand that. But when you actually use your label as your complete identity, that's an issue for me, because it shows that there's nothing else to you. It means that you want to be completely judged and based on that one thing, rather than judging you. People should be judged on who they are as a person, how they treat people, and, you know, and all that kind of stuff. So rather than one aspect. I think that's my biggest issue. And I know we had this conversation with you. I think you brought this up in a story not too long ago. This is where we were talking about this, is that instantly with labels, with you in particular, because yeah, you do like, I mean, you do have some qualities that would generally be left field, I'd say. But you're completely comfortable with that. But it doesn't necessarily mean one thing or the other.
Well, and I think it was tough because it took a long time, obviously, to go into that. I'm like, obviously, into my 30s before I was actually fully, really comfortable trying to really explore a lot of those different things that I do, or that I just want to enjoy about my life. Because if I tried to, I was already bullied all the way through high school and all the way through school, my whole life, for just being a little bit different, or even being slightly effeminate or more androgynous, because at the time I was very skinny, and and I would experiment with different types of fashion stuff because I really was into that. I really enjoyed that. And it just, it really, I'm so glad that I was still able to have eventually find somewhere the confidence to still be able to express stuff like that without caring what other people think, because that could have easily snuffed that out, you know, my past and the way people treated me. And I think it does it for a lot of people. And what you had said earlier, I think it snuffs out a lot of people's curiosities. You know, we should be curious humans. That's how we figure things out, is we find things, we find new experiences, we make up new things, all these, you know, it's wonderful to be curious, and you're going to stop people from being curious of just living life and trying to see, what is that like? Or what is that like? The more we keep trying to, you know, put everybody into a box and kind of say, this belongs here and this belongs here, and you can.
I mean, look, that kind of behavior as well over time, it causes repression. So you're not really being your true self. I mean, if you want to experience something, you experience it. But because society's created all these labels, like everyone's so scared of judgment and what their friends think, whatnot. But rather than, I don't think people are being, you know, genuine to themselves at this point.
No, well, and I think it conditions people to then have a label, and that's, like you said, that's all they have to offer. I think it conditions people to do that. Well, this is where I belong, so now this is the label I have to use, and this is all I can have to offer. And it teaches people how to do that from a young age, and instead of trying to be more authentic and trying to be different. You know, people, I would say it's tough standing out because we live in a society that doesn't like to stand out. But it's unfortunate that I think, discourage people from standing out and being different. Versus, following the line.
And look, I mean, look, the whole concept is generally, I mean, everyone, human nature and humans just want to create equality. And that's what it's generally about. You know, it's all about, well, most of them do, like, create equality. You know, it's being unified in society. Like, and for an example, which most likely will get me in trouble, the alphabet mafia at this point. It's a society that's, I find, is so adamant about preaching very love, acceptance. It's all this, but it's one group that I find is so hellbent on creating categories within itself. It's like, I understand you want tribes, but at the same time, creating those tribes segregates you from other people in your community. It segregates you from the outside world, and it doesn't make sense to me. And then if you don't go along with that, like that way of thinking, then they will essentially attack, and you will be discriminated against it. Where it's the whole thing is like, they're fearful of being discriminated against, but they're so quick to discriminate at the same time. So it doesn't, to me, that doesn't make sense. It's like, if you want free love and acceptance, in any kind of culture, why are you so hell-bent on just creating this one minority that segregates you from everything else? So everyone's got the same blood. No one bleeds differently unless you're an alien. So you know, but it's a shame. It's a shame that it's just everyone's us against them.
Yeah, and I think that's just a very, very tough thing for people and humans to do, especially if they're ever hurt. If they ever felt hurt, or if they felt like discriminated against, it's very hard for them, their heart not to get hardened, and then not want to, okay, in order for me to get what I want, I also need to exude that and put that out there. And then instead it's easy to do the opposite. And as soon as you become something that's exclusive, it can become a problem, because exclusivity means, okay, well then we're going to not include, not everybody's included in that, or I'm going to be here and I'm going to be with, and it's okay to be with like-minded people. Like you said, finding your tribe, there's value in that, because you need, everyone wants to
belong to something. That's generally human nature. That's true.
Sure. But yeah, when you start to get into, I think, and a lot of it too, is when you start to get into places where maybe I'm being challenged on my own identity and I don't know what that is and I don't know what that means. Instead of always finding other people that may be just as lost as you are, try to find somebody that's going to help you kind of navigate that. What does this mean? What does it look like? Where am I going? Where do I want to go? How do I feel? And I think there's not a whole lot of spaces, at least also in America, there's not a whole lot of spaces for people to go and do that. And I think especially in youth, especially when kids are being raised by their parents now, I don't think they ask certain questions. I think, or the kids feel scared to ask the questions about, oh, I wonder what it would like to, like, let's say something I talked to my wife about the other day. When I was very, very young, I remember asking my dad, and I said, have you ever wondered what it's like to be a woman? I think he probably, now as an adult, I bet he freaked out at that time. Because, of course, I was born and raised in Texas, born and raised in the South. And men were tough, and men were not helpless, and men were, this whole mantra of what a man should be. And so asking my own dad that question, I was the firstborn, must have freaked him out now that I look at it. But it is one of those things that we shouldn't, like you said, go to extremes and go, oh my gosh, now he wants to do this, or now he wants to be just go, I wonder why he asked that question. I wonder why that there's that curiosity. And you let people play things out a little bit. And then you'll find out that, I think people will find out that they have a lot more in common with the people that they feel like are not in their camp.
It's like I said, it's human nature to define yourself by your label. That's fine. But the negative part of that is that it self-limits you as well. Because if you identify yourself as one particular thing completely and you just use that as your complete identity, I feel like you're not going to know anything else. I feel like there's nothing else that, you're putting yourself completely in a box. And that's disappointing, because it erases any kind of potential for you to grow as a human being, really, because you're just stuck in the same thing with the same ideologies over and over again, just repeating it in your head. And it's like, this is what I have to be. This is my tribe. I'm just going to keep going with this. And then you've got look, and I'll bring it up, like TikTok at the moment is probably the most toxic thing on the planet. Because if you look at what's on there at this point, when it comes to labels, Generation Z, so this is going to show my age now. It's going to show our age, actually. Generation Z is all about labeling. It's completely about labeling. You've got examples of teenagers now that are using labels as firstly, mental health is now people are diagnosing themselves on TikTok, and then they're identifying themselves with this and that, and then they're adding on, then you've got the whole pronouns thing, and you've got this other thing. There's like 50,000 different labels that they are doing. It's sad, the fact that these people are going online and discussing like the 20 labels they've categorized themselves on, because they are so desperate to feel like they need to be a part of something, rather than actually going out and seeing the world and actually identifying themselves with something different. They're going based on A, trends, B, because they're isolated completely on their phones. I say this as we're doing this on our phones. And it's disappointing, because it's creating a whole new generation that doesn't know what the hell they are. Back in the day, especially even when it came to people like with the whole sexuality aspect of everything, and gender, like this whole sexuality gender thing, which to be honest, I think is exactly the same thing. I don't know why they separated, but regardless or not, you've got people that don't know who they are anymore. It used to be like I'm a woman, I'm proud. Like, I mean, that song, I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar, like whatever, I can't remember saying that, whatever. And now it's, I don't know who I am anymore. Like, what happened post-COVID where suddenly people are just don't know what they are. So then they just create all these new labels, and then they create these new things in order to just desperately to belong to something. But then it's like, it confuses the fuck out of me. I'll be honest. It really does.
Yeah. Well, I think, especially like you said, post-pandemic, I think a lot of people had a lot of time to do nothing. And when you have a lot of time to do nothing and you take away all of your distractions, you start to realize, like, what am I doing with my life? Who am I? What are these? And then if you look internally deep enough, that's where you need to be going, because that creates a lot of growth and a lot of self-awareness. So you could probably be better at identifying yourself. But a lot of times when you go deeper, you've got to go through the weeds and the twigs and the mud, and you got to go through the dark stuff and the fearful stuff. And then I think once you get to tap into that part, people are like, nope, fuck that. And they're coming back out. Like, it's too painful. I don't want to deal with it. And so it's like, I'll find something else. And then somebody may say something on TikTok or whatever. And they're going, you know what? That resonates with me. And instead of going, let's explore that a little bit more. What does this sound like? What does this feel like? Like, that's it. That's got to be it. So I think it takes away any sort of self-discovery. It takes away the work. It takes away the work and the investment that you have to do or to make in yourself to figure out who you are. And that's the other thing too. Like you talked about, the younger generation is they're so quick to also want to identify who they are at such a young age. And it's like, I'm in my 30s now. I'm still figuring out who the fuck I am. Yes. Yeah, I had no idea who the fuck I was when I was in my 20s, and I thought I did in my teens, and I'm like, and I just told I was talking to my sister the other day, like, why do we do this when we're kids? We think we know everything, and we don't listen to the good, like information that we get when we're younger, and we just figure it out the hard way. I'm like, why is it like that? But because now, like you said, there's tons of toxic and good things, but there's just tons of streaming info. Let's just call it content, period, that can be pumped into your head day in and day out, and there's constant access to it. And then of course the biggest thing is the depression and a lot of mental health issues now that kids are facing, because they constantly compare their life to whatever they're seeing there. And that's a bunch of bullshit too, because everybody's, even me, we're not showing the deep shit parts that we're in of our lives, when we're down on the dumps crying, when we're depressed. We're showing the good parts, we're showing the fun parts, we're showing the good angles. We're like, of course. And it's not always going to be rainbows and butterflies, and maybe we should be better about being more transparent. I try to feel like I do, but I don't always want to record when I'm crying.
I find people that record when they're crying and they talk about their problems online. It's attention seeking, and it's narcissistic behavior. And I'm honestly, that just does not resonate with me. It's like, you want to deal with it, deal with it, but don't go online and asking people for sympathy. And like, that's just, it's not authentic.
Well, and it's not authentic. It's not real.
So, but like,
you're not taking the time to actually really like.
And look, even when it comes to what you were saying, like, I mean, people are so quick to put something on themselves based on what they've seen on TikTok or Instagram or whatnot. But it's the same equivalent as going on Google and diagnosing yourself with something. Oh, I found a lump. Oh my God, it's Hodgkin's disease or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, I've got
WebMD.
scabies. I don't even know what the fuck that is. I don't even know what that is. But anyway, scabies, I think that's what I was trying to say. But you know what I mean? It's the same quick. The new generation is so adamant about not doing any kind of self-discovery, and they want a quick answer. It's the lack of attention at this point they have. Like, the attention to detail on anything is non-existent. It's like, I'm thinking that like the attention span is close to like 1 to 2 seconds now. It used to be 4 seconds, but it's worse than a goldfish. Yeah.
It's pretty bad. Even
I mean, I know my excuse,
it's pretty
I've
bad.
got ADD, but still,
and
like,
I think,
hey, look over there. But yeah, so, but like, it's I don't know. I think in the sense of the way that society is going, it's the most lost it's ever been.
I think so. Yeah. And that's, I think that's, I think, where you and I talked about a while back too. It's like, now what? Where do we go? Where's our next path in life individually too? And I think that's the call to arms. And like, what does my life mean at the age of 37 to live in this time now with a world that is very, very lost and divided?
Yeah.
What part do I play? And what am I supposed to bring to the table? And how am I supposed to help that? Because I don't want to see the world like that either. I don't like seeing people in pain and hurting, and I don't want to be in a shitty world either and have to deal with it. But it's the asking the questions of, like, we got to start, of course, obviously having the harder conversations. And the kids and the younger generation, you know, some of it they have to take responsibility for, and other parts it's not their fault. It's the people the parents that raised them, you know. And then it's not the having the hard conversations or the neglect or the, I mean, we could go on and on and go, and we spin off into many directions on all that. But yeah, what is the solution now? I think that's what I've been asking, is what do we do now? How do we regulate it? How do we help? And I guess it's posting more content like this.
Hopefully that's the case,
questions.
but you never know. I mean, most people, there'll be, but in the span of the next 5 minutes, there'll be some kind of new label that would basically come up with, that someone will invent, like, this is me now. Like, it's just like, I don't know. I don't understand how the society is just so adamant about just labeling everything now.
It is very hard. You have to navigate all these different terms and ways of describing people and talking about people, and of course, like, now they have certain stipulations on stand-up comedy, which I absolutely love, which I hate, because I think true expression and making fun of things is what keeps us real and what keeps us, you know. And you don't have to hurt people's feelings, you don't have to be, you know, hateful, but it is fun. We're a society that brings wonderful things as a human race, and also very stupid things and funny things and ridiculous things at the same time. And we need to embrace all sides of that and be able to also, like, you talk about having a thicker skin too. I mean, I do think
people are like,
no, and I get that there's some, like you and I talked about, there's some issues that need to be raised that obviously need an answer to. Like, I don't feel like there's certain aspects of masculinity that can be toxic that was learned from different generations, and that needs to be addressed. But there's also other things that I think that we've gotten too soft on, to the point I'm like, all right, you know, I just feel overall that's not going to set you up for a good, you're going to get smacked down at life every single time.
This is the thing, is like, this is where labels comes into it now. It's that when things get too difficult or people want to tap out, they'll use a label and be like, oh, this is me. This is because I can't do this because of this. Because this is my identity. You're being prejudiced against it. And I'm like, oh, you really pulling this shit. And the sad thing is that society is so quick to like, oh my God, we will just completely just cater to you. You're that 0.1% that we will cater to you because we don't want to hurt your feelings. And that's what the sad thing is.
That does kind of confuse me a little bit. I don't know. I'm not sure why it went to that length, and it does go to those links with such, I think, certain small populations that would all of a sudden say this is what it's got to be. And I don't know how it's kind of gone all the way up into more of a legislative
I don't know
decision making. I don't know how it got that far. I mean,
obviously, part of society. It's become the biggest thing, and it's like, what is going on? How are we just catering for stupidity at this point? Like, it's to the point where it's like, everyone is soft, everyone is offended by absolutely everything these days. You can't say anything, and it's like the tiniest group will just say, oh, like, and then just, oh, okay, we're going to completely change the legislative order based on this. I'm like, what?
I know, and so that's where it really gets to me. I'm like, where are we really fighting about what's the really important thing, and when isn't, not as enough is enough, but I feel like there are times, like, you do want everybody to feel welcome. You want everybody to feel safe, and you want everybody to feel like they have equal opportunity and they want to be loved. But beyond that, there are so many other issues that need to be tackled. And like you said, obviously in America, gun reform is a big one, but I don't know how these become big topics. And I don't know if it's because the left and the right like to post those stuff in the news to get people fighting about all this little bickering tiny stuff when so they can do the bigger stuff and they can keep our eyes blinded to what they're really doing, which is,
I know, I agree with
you. But and then They love it when we all
Yeah.
fight. They love
Society
it when we
is
bicker.
literally
So,
imploding on itself right now. And the arguments and the wars based on labels itself is just going so far. And it's the tiniest thing. Disregard everything that's actually important, and let's just talk about your feelings on this.
it is tough because you do want to just kind of throw your hands up and go, all right, I'm out. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to be around anybody. I want to just close myself off. You guys are crazy. You guys are crazy. You guys are cool. I'll hang out with you and then I'm out. But I'm trying to, that's right. Yeah. That's my question is how do I help fix that? And I don't know if it's continue to do the shit that I do, you know, the short booty shorts and the nails painted. And I don't know, like the different things and go, hey, you can still, you know, have some hair on your chest and paint your nails. Like you can do all these different things. It doesn't all have to make sense. It doesn't have to come together. And that doesn't make sure that it doesn't all of a sudden mean that I'm a different person or that my, like you said, my identity has changed or my sexuality has changed. It just means I'm just trying to be me and a person that is experiencing life. And why can't we all do that? How about you go do that? Don't put a label on it. Just go experience it. Feel what that's like. And then if you want to do that today and then you want to do something tomorrow, go do that tomorrow. You know, because then, but yeah, you're right. I think everybody's just also very lonely because they don't know how to interact with people in person anymore because we're doing so much of this that they have to, sometimes labels feel safe and they feel comfy because then I can go over here and I don't really have to have any social skills. I don't have to have anything really to bring to the table, any skills. I can just immediately belong and they'll accept me, which sounds great at first, but then what?
It's now going too far. I mean, look, we were saying this the other day, like how generally especially when I do like the questionnaires and ask me a question, whatever, the biggest question I always get is what my sexual identity is, right? And I never say what it is because it's like,
I would say that's,
and it would be for you as well. We have this conversation. So it's like, I never answer because A, what I do in the bedroom is my business. B, I don't need to tell anyone what my sexual identity is because it is literally the smallest part of who I am. It is not me. And I feel like it's like like I said, if you're going to judge someone, if you're going to analyze someone, judge them, analyze them, base them on who they are as a person, how they treat other people. That's the biggest thing. In the end, I'm David. That's me. I don't need a label. I don't need to be, I don't need a label. I don't need a printout. I don't need none of that stuff. I just need to be me. And that's the thing is that people are not satisfied with themselves as a whole. So if you're not satisfied with yourself as a whole, then you're desperate to make yourself feel special and you're going to throw on 50 million labels in order to feel like you could be different from everybody else. When in fact you are different. No one is the same. No one's the same. So why don't you just explore your own individuality at this point and express who you are as a person? Why do you need to label it? Why are you so adamant about wanting people to know something about you that's so insignificant? It's actually not you as a person. It's a small part. Show who you really are as a person. Use that to grow. And you'll be a happier, better person rather than just categorizing your own self in a box that doesn't exist, yet you want to make sure that you feel like you're something, you're part of something, or you're better than something. And it doesn't, to me, it just does not make any sense. It doesn't make you special. It just makes you stupid at this point. Because realistically, no, but I know it sounds offensive in a sense, but at the same time, it's like you're not allowing your true self to actually be who you are because you're so quick to put yourself in a category and make yourself feel special about something that's so insignificant. It's a fucking label, and be the person you're meant to be.
Or you're not allowing yourself to develop.
No.
You're not allowing yourself to develop, and you're not allowing, we talked about earlier, you're not allowing to express yourself in other forms. So that's the only thing you are. That's the only thing you've got to bring to the table. That's the only thing that you have to offer. There's got to be something more, you know. And that's what's so funny. Sometimes I get the DMs, the message, direct messages from people like, oh, like I don't know. I'm like, maybe you don't pay attention to the rest of my Instagram, and I don't post my wife a lot, but hardly at all, because a lot of times she doesn't want to be on there. But I'll get a DM that's like, oh, I bet your boyfriend is so lucky. I'm like, why would you just assume that? Like, why do you have to put that there? Like, and what an ignorant statement, because I would never do that to somebody else. I would never just assume, because immediately what that does is like, I'm not going to engage with you, especially in a positive way, that immediately turns to me and go, nope, not going to deal with that. And then you're not getting what you want anyway. Like, I don't understand. Yeah, I don't understand. Again, it's that incessant need to go, I need to know where you belong.
That's the thing. It's like a lot of these people are desperate to know so much about one person. It's like, why don't you focus on yourself? Like, why are you so adamant about knowing about what my sexuality is, what I do in my private life? Yet here you are, probably some fake profile, most likely. Generally, that's the case. It's always a blank profile anyway. And it's like, what are you getting out of this? Yeah. What are you actually getting out of this?
Yeah. Right. Why, and why not ask the questions? Why is it not more important to go where my heart's at, like, or how I treat people, or the kind of person that I am, or the kind of husband that I am? Well, but again,
but you know what? I
much
am
about my marriage, but
you're not posting about your marriage purely because that is your business.
Yeah,
I never post anything on my relationships.
Sure.
As a rule of thumb, I've made that mistake in the past. Sure. I will never post who I'm dating, or anything about my relationship, because I believe your relationship is your relationship. Why do I need to validate my relationship on social media from a whole bunch of 96,000 followers that I don't even know half of them? And I'm like, what am I going to get out of it? What do I need you to basically tell me that I'm got a great relationship? It's loving, it's cute. No, it's no one's business. Right. So I never say anything when it comes to that stuff. And I am all for, I'm all for basically just keeping your own private life private. That's how it should be. We don't need to show absolutely everything on social media.
Right. And I think that's where sometimes I do face a challenge, because I am always such an open book all the time. And I want to talk about everybody, not everybody, I want to talk to everybody about everything and everything. And then I start to have to reel back and go, you have to remember, not everybody deserves to know that. Not everybody deserves an explanation on this and this and this and this. And you have to keep those things, and especially now I'm really learning, the more of a following that I do get and the more that I spend on social media, the more time I spend, I'm learning that I'm like, yeah, you really need to take yourself away from that quite a bit and keep certain parts private, because it's starting to, it's even starting to affect me just a little bit now, where I have to take a step back and go, okay, I need to turn this off. And I need to quit posting so much of my life.
The questions now, because we've got a couple of questions, and one of them is, are you guys gay? You're both super hot.
Maybe this is exactly what we're talking about.
Interview, and you can see yourself. Look, like I said before, labels and these self-created divisions, it makes it harder for people to come together. And it's disappointing because it's like, it does ultimately turn into us versus them.
Well, it gets lost in translation, and then nobody then respects you for it.
No,
nobody's going to really take you seriously.
I totally agree with that, and that's disappointing because it's dehumanizing us as human beings. And I don't want to fit in a particular category. I just want to fit into me. I just want to fit into my pants, which currently I really don't at this point. So. These pants are quite tight. So overall, I think that's where I stand with the whole labels and society's needs. I think that people need to just make up their own mind, experience life. Don't be afraid to try new things. No one figures out who they are. Like, especially this younger generation is so desperate to figure out who they are. It's like, I did not know who I was when I was 18. I didn't know who I was when I was in my 20s. Like, I can't even remember my 20s. I was so drunk on dance floor somewhere. So, and I'm now hit my 40s. I'm 32. And I still have no idea who I am as a person and where I'm going.
I know, and it's one of those, it's like those onion, like the Shrek talks about, you peel the onion, there's more layers and more layers. And it does. I start to find more layers of myself as I've gone through life, and it's a really wonderful thing. And I don't know about you, but I get really impatient at times, and I really want to figure it all out immediately. And so it brings on anxiety, because I'm like, why don't I have this figured out yet? But then you should go, I think that's the journey, is figuring that out piece by piece as we keep going. And that's why don't be so quick to say, this is exactly who I am. I want people to know inwardly, like, I know who I am. I'm a good person. I'm a good husband. I'm you know, a good son. I'm, you know, these are the things. I'm a lifter. But I could sit there and make a big list of what I am, and it's all kinds of things. It's not one thing. It's not one label.
But you're also not going to go on social media
yeah,
and like, I'm this and I'm this and that. This is my label. You're like, like no one's going to give a shit.
Well, because then I could pick any one throughout any day and go, okay, now this is it. You have to trust me
now. And like, I just find that sad. That's the sad thing about it, is that people are just, they forget that life continues and you're always learning. Every single lesson in life is a learning lesson. And regardless if it's bad or if it's good, like I live my life in a sense, I don't have any regrets because I've gone and had some really shitty experiences through my life. At the same time, it's like, I don't need to firstly have those like experiences. I like, what's the word? Change who I am as a person, essentially. Like I look at every experience I've had and I learn from it and then I move forward. Otherwise, if I stay there and in these bad situations over the time, then I'm a victim and I'll never move forward. And I know a lot of people that have that victim mentality and then they label themselves as a victim. They label themselves as that. This is who they are for the rest of their lives because they never learn from it. It's the same goes for people in society at this point where they've labeled themselves as one particular thing. They're so adamant of being tunnel vision and they're not going to learn from who they are as a person. They'd rather just stick there. It's safe, it's comfortable, it's within the TikTok community and everybody, like, I've got TikTok friends, yet none of these people would ever actually meet any of them, but they're like, I'm just going to do this. It's like, get over yourself, get out and actually do something in the world, experience something different and find out who you are, because you always learn from everything in life and you move forward. That's how you grow. Like, you think all those people who went through the emo stage back in the 90s, you think they're emos now? It's probably like 0.01% that someone stayed as an emo. Like, you know what I mean? And we like, it's the same as like, unfortunately, I was going to say with mullets, but still people have brought that back. It's worse in Melbourne.
Yeah, well, and I think even on the flip side, even if you have regrets, because I think there's certain things I'm like, oh, I wish I'd have done that differently. But I go, also, there's no way I can change that. There's nothing I can do about that now. And I have to move forward. So even if somebody has regrets, you know, well, move past it. You can't do anything about it now. And what's going to benefit you now by, you know, being bummed out and going, I don't know who I am. Go figure it out. Like you said, get dirty. Life is messy. And that's one of the things I have to really be okay with, because I hate messy. I want everything like this. and it's not like that. And you have to figure it out. You're going to spend your whole life figuring it out. And then you're going to learn so many things about yourself. I'm still learning like amazing things about myself, especially since May next month. Yeah, I'll be 2 years sober. I'm figuring so much out in that 2-year span because now I have the time to reflect instead of chase it away and go, no, I don't want to hear it. So, I mean, screw the labels, figure out who you are. Enjoy
and I totally agree. And look, in the closing argument at this point, I think, it's all about, like you said, it's experiencing new things in life, finding out who you are. You don't necessarily have to be with one thing and that's your identity. That's my biggest issues with today's society, is that they're so adamant about using that one aspect, one label to be their complete identity in anything that makes you vapid, because it shows there's nothing else about you that's valuable that you feel like you could show. When in fact there is, but you're choosing not to. You're choosing not to.
There's so much. Yeah, but you're also, by somebody doing that, you're teaching us what is valuable and that there's nothing else valuable about you. You're teaching us, society, how to turn back and look at you. And I'm like,
that's
really?
what
That's what you want them
remembered
that's
for,
all you
this
want to know.
one aspect, which is so insignificant at this point, or particularly if it's something that's completely made up. It's like, okay, cool, great. You created a new mental illness. That's what you want to be labeled for? You want to... anyway, whatever. So... Okay, well, this has been a great argument. I wouldn't say argument, it's been a great discussion. Thank you so much for coming on to the first episode. So everyone, this will be available on Spotify later during the week, and also there'll be a YouTube clip of this as well, so if you want to tune in. Yes, so thank you everyone for joining, and thank you, Carlus, for actually coming on board. It's been great, and I'll see everyone soon for the next episode. Thank you. Bye.
Awesome. Thank you.